Chapter 6, Buying Psychology and Branding. It would be impossible to build an effective business development system without considering the psychology of buying and decision-making. The brain is complex, but understanding some fundamental principles can help create a more efficient buying-selling collaboration. Additionally, these insights, when merged with a few proven frameworks, can assist you in building a powerful brand that emanates the truth of your value, your culture, and your mission. So we've talked about specializing in your audience and knowing the buyer personas that make or break your success. We've also visualized how marketing, sales, and the buying journey align. It's time to take these big picture insights down to the one-to-one level, because the words and images you choose must lead individuals to decide to buy from you. Let's look at what's happening in an individual's brain during decision-making and how to apply the psychology of decision-making to help us better serve the prospective buyer. Get ready, because these insights are in direct contradiction to the way typical B2B marketing has been done in the past. But this approach is what will give your tactical execution real teeth. We are not logical. In 2002, Daniel Kahneman won the Nobel Prize in Economics for showing that humans don't make logical decisions, especially in the face of complex judgments. It was a shocking choice for the award, considering Kahneman is not an economist, but a psychologist. Additionally, modern economic theory was primarily built on the assumption that humans are rational. As it turns out, we are not. And this relates to the critical shift that must happen in B2B marketing. We cannot simply present complex information in a stack of logical bullet points and expect to win the day. Why? Because decision-making doesn't happen in the part of the brain that manages logic. It actually happens in the limbic brain, which is responsible for emotion. The limbic system is a collective term for brain structures that are involved in processing emotions, and it's responsible for all human behavior and decision-making and has no capacity for language. On top of that, this system processes information 200 times faster than the cognitive brain. In other words, when we communicate merely features, facts, and figures of a product, it doesn't catalyze action. This type of information only provides rationale for the decisions that we have already made in the subconscious. Scientists have found that brain-damaged patients who have lost their capacity to feel emotion struggle to make even the most elementary decisions. If you're like most of my clients, this just made you uncomfortable. Good. Do you want to know why your current marketing isn't working? Because you are not tapping into the most important tool in your marketing and in your humanity. It's your ability to create an emotional response in another person. Let's think for a moment about what the brain is responsible for every day. The brain is responsible for keeping us alive, coordinating the body systems, and translating impulses into movement, speech, thought, ideation, action, and emotions. It's responsible for subconscious processing, memory, learning, change, decision-making, and so much more. Thus, a key function of the brain is to protect itself from overload and to pay attention to the right things, and it has a number of ways of doing this. The brain is remarkable at preventing overload because it is a remarkable filter. Every second, we are bombarded by information. The human body sends 11 million bits of information per second to the brain for processing, and the conscious mind processes 50 bits of information per second. This filtering mechanism allows us to have a conversation in a crowded restaurant, drive a car, and pick up on peripheral danger signals. The brain is built to focus on the things of most importance and interest to us. The key part of the brain that focuses attention is the reticular activating system, RAS. RAS is best known as a filter because it distinguishes between important information that requires attention and unimportant information that can be ignored. As Ruben Gonzalez explains in The Courage to Succeed, even though the cerebrum is the center of thought, it will not respond to a message unless the RAS allows it. So what does the RAS let into the conscious mind? Ironically, only things that are already important. The RAS helps you decide what is important. For example, if you're considering buying a red Audi for the first time, all of a sudden, you will notice more red Audis than you ever knew existed. You will not notice black BMWs, yellow Volkswagens, or white Porsches. The RAS is also the part of the brain that recognizes your baby's cry or identifies danger. In short, the brain pre-decides what to pay attention to based on a combination of past experiences, life influences, desires, and one's current emotional state. This insight puts a new twist on what you're actually competing against. Think about that for a moment. Your message must contend for attention along with 11 million other bits of information per second. When you consider the 3 exchanges in the sales cycle, you're fighting for prioritization in your customer's mind. This means you're not just competing with your named customers. In the world of marketing and getting attention, you're literally competing with everything else your buyers see, think, and feel. You're competing with their spouse, their kids, the vacation planning to Disney World, the Bud Light they want after work, their email overload, and all the other wants, needs, problems, and interests they have. And either your marketing message will trigger a predisposition for a buyer to pay attention to you, or it won't. Again, this is why it's so critical to know your buyer personas. If you don't know who they are inside their heads, you won't get in. This all happens in the subconscious and is related to getting people to know your name, that you even exist. This is what's happening in the attention exchange. Much of this book has been based on the critical truth that emotion drives decisions. Building your buyer personas will help you understand emotional buying motivations and how people's lives feel. Sales mapping helps you empathize with the emotion of the buyer's journey. Messaging choreography begins with emotion, validates and gently leads them to a confident decision. Branding captures the emotion of your relationship to your customers. It is time for those in the B2B world to stop sabotaging their own efforts just because they aren't comfortable with emotion. The brain uses shortcuts to make difficult decisions. It's said that we make roughly 10,000 decisions per day, with 90% of our decisions made subconsciously. Complex tasks such as learning, reasoning, and comprehending, which are conscious, call in a system of the brain known as working memory. Working memory assists us in executing tasks and controls our attention. It helps us hold on to information long enough for us to use it. But different tasks require different amounts of attention for successful completion, and working memory has limited capacity. This is referred to as cognitive load, and the working memory is extremely vulnerable to overload, as it can only hold around 3 or 4 bits of information at one time, and information in working memory lasts around 10 seconds. In extremely complex situations, especially scenarios in which there is a lot of new information, our ability to learn and understand suffers. To protect itself from overload, the brain tries to reduce the effort associated with a task by using tried and true mental shortcuts called heuristics. Heuristics are simple and efficient rules that people use, whether intentionally or subconsciously, to facilitate their decision-making. However, they can lead to cognitive biases. By understanding common heuristics, you're better equipped to choose the right information to help decision-makers during the buying journey. Most decisions are influenced by the associations we've already made in the past, and thus cue us to predispositions we aren't consciously aware of. Let's take a look at a few heuristics and how they align with the principles we've discussed thus far. Repetition. Studies suggest that repetition can have a positive effect on someone's reception of and agreement with a persuasive argument. The more a person hears something, the more likely he or she is to begin to believe its validity. This is an area that many B2B companies underestimate. I often see marketers and salespeople get bored with the same messaging to their own detriment. Remember that it takes 7 to 13 touches just to get a lead. Don't assume people remember everything your sales or marketing touchpoints said. Familiarity bias. Politically correct or not, our brains favor members of our own social groups. This can go beyond ethnic and social groups, but here again, when we see people familiar to us, our brains trust the provided information. Familiarity is one of the most common heuristics. Branding helps because it directs initial impressions and provides a long-term framework of recognition and trust. When you combine this with consistency and repetition, your brand offers the mental associations buyers will use to catalog their impressions of your company and your value. Loss aversion. We respond more strongly to loss than to gain. Loss aversion implies that losses loom in our minds about twice as large as equivalent gains. It is significant for you to realize that your prospect will focus more on the risks than the rewards when making decisions. Inertia. We tend to interpret information the same way over time and rely on familiar assumptions. Don't underestimate how difficult it is to change people's minds and preferences. This is especially important in positioning. If you find your business is in a situation where you need to reposition your brand, you must first acknowledge buyers' perceptions and seek strategies that will help people shift their opinions rather than try to convince them that you are different from what they first thought. In branding, you must begin with what is true about you because your customers already have a preconceived notion of how to understand you. Simply saying you are different from what they assumed is not enough to make it so. It's critical to remember also that the data suggests the most common reason B2B companies don't close a deal is because a prospect decides not to move forward. If you are losing deals to the status quo, this is inertia at work. Confirmation bias. We tend to favor and believe information that confirms what we already believe. This influences not only what we pay attention to, but how we interpret information and even what and how we remember information. This reinforces why it is critical to begin your messaging choreography with mirroring how those of a certain buyer persona see their problem. Social proof. When unsure how to proceed, we'll often look for cues as to how others make a decision. Reading reviews, recognizing prominent clients or endorsements, and using testimonials are all examples of social proof. When the social proof comes from people or companies who share your buyer personas, it's all the more powerful. Contrast effect. When we compare options to one another, we tend to exaggerate our opinion of something more than if we had considered the same thing by itself. For example, you're more likely to be impressed by an average-looking person if that person is standing next to a less attractive person than if you had seen him or her alone. Pricing comparisons, stories that provide context, and before and afters are good examples. Anchoring. Our exposure to a number, even a random number, will serve as a reference point against which we'll compare our options. Do not lead with a low number when verbally giving pricing options, as your buyer's brain will anchor to it. Reciprocity. In general, humans don't like to feel indebted to anyone, and the desire to pay someone back can be powerful motivation. Have you ever bought something you didn't want or didn't like after accepting a free sample? This is the reciprocity heuristic in effect. Free guides, demos, and trials are great examples, and they can lead into other heuristics such as familiarity. Be aware, however, that this heuristic has been overused in certain areas, so your generosity should be authentic and of high value. It's my philosophy to give what you want to receive, but not expect a payoff. Do it because it's the right thing to do as a servant leader. If you follow the principles in this book, you'll actually do this naturally. This by no means is an exhaustive list. It's not even close. So why, you might ask, bring this up at all? To reinforce one simple message. We are not logical beings. We are emotional beings. Dry, self-oriented marketing does not work. The science of decision-making heavily influences the strategies recommended in this book, so you'll be incorporating these heuristics already, but it helps to be aware of the additional reasons why this roadmap works. If you want to get people's attention, you must talk to them about them. Use words, images, and emotions that they already prioritize to open the door to conscious recognition of your product or service. Tap into emotion over logic. Know what your buyer personas care about, and pay attention to and help your buyers by using this insight to get their attention. Seek simplicity in your messaging to avoid overload, and consider ways in which the thoughtful use of heuristics can make it a little easier for a prospect to choose you. The buyer's brain in your brand. Now it's time to talk about how you are perceived and what you must do to distill your truth into a clear, finite impression. It's time to talk about your brand. You just learned that existing associations that people have made in the past can predispose them toward one decision over another at the subconscious level. Branding is the art of aligning with and directing people's emotions and opinions on the conscious and subconscious levels. Your brand is not how you view your company. It's how outsiders view your company. A truly amazing brand sits at the intersection of its incomparable advantage and what its customers care about. Your brand should attract and appeal to your ideal customers. So if you're choosing your color palette and symbols based solely on your personal preferences, you could be in trouble. There is a ton of material written about brand and branding, much of it, of course, from the B2C point of view. And much of what you read will only add to any confusion rather than reduce it. Thus, my goal for this chapter is twofold. First, I want to convince you of the absolutely critical, non-negotiable importance of branding without writing a whole nother book on this topic. Secondly, I'd like to distill the conversation of branding into something practical and actionable for you to employ. Great brands don't get built or reinvented overnight, but you must be intentional about the process. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is now. Chinese proverb. Branding is science, art, messaging, culture, and customer experience wrapped into one communication strategy. And in the B2B world, it is wildly undervalued, which means it holds a world of opportunity. As buyers' choices get more complex, your actual message needs to become more human. Technology has bred a more intense need for a personal touch, and this makes branding more important than ever before in the B2B world. Your first impression is a lasting impression. Before you spend more money on promotion, make sure your core brand and message will impress and resonate. Your brand must have appeal and intentionally communicate to your target market to help them understand you and prefer you over your competition at the gut level. The word brand or branding has at times become synonymous with marketing in general. It's true that your brand is overlaid against everything that you do, but the semantics can get complicated, so I've organized this discussion around the practical application of brand principles. The American Marketing Association defines a brand as a name, term, design, symbol, or any other feature that identifies one seller's goods or service as distinct from those of other sellers. The International Organization for Standardization further explains that a brand assists in creating distinctive images and associations in the minds of stakeholders, thereby generating economic benefit values. Thus, your brand is not just your logo and color scheme. It is instead what people believe about you when they engage with anything representing your organization. Branding is the art of aligning what you want people to think about your company with what people actually do think about your company, and vice versa. Jay Baer. Branding is how you show up in the world. It's how people feel about you. So it's a never-ending, always evolving aspect of marketing and competition. You can't rest on your laurels because minds change, experiences change, and markets change. Your brand works for you or against you on the subconscious level because the brain processes vast amounts of data, with the primary source being visual information, which the brain processes and organizes in a fraction of a second. As the saying goes, seeing is believing. What visuals are you using to provide the critical first impression? And what emotional signals do your visual communications trigger? Does your branding have a polish that is appealing, or does it look homemade or old? Are you conveying professionalism and capability, or does your brand appear dated or mom and pop, suggesting that you're small, you don't innovate, or you don't keep up with the times? If you are in an industry with very strong brands, how are you standing out? Could those in the market consistently choose words that clearly name your position and corporate personality? If someone were to match your name to a competitor's logo, would it be ridiculous or not even noticeable? The point I'm trying to make is that every single communication choice you make tells a story. Not making a choice, i.e. not investing in your brand, is still making a choice. Your lack of attention to this matter might communicate that you are apathetic or pay no attention to detail. Make no mistake, people will draw conclusions based on how you choose to communicate, and these conclusions are what they'll use to form their comparisons between you and your competition. No matter how diligently your salespeople prospect, hustle, and follow up, they are at a huge disadvantage if the brand doesn't communicate excellence when they aren't in the room. The best doesn't always win. The best at removing fear does. Solid branding removes fear because it demonstrates intentionality, competence, and allure. As for myself, I prefer to be the master of my destiny and communicate strength rather than wait around for scraps or missed opportunities left over by my competition. Do yourself a favor and make it easy for the market to trust you. Stack the cards in your favor. The achievements of a great brand are as follows: awareness, trust, belief, memorability, desire, reputation, likability, belonging, loyalty, consistency. So how do you build an amazing brand? I organize the elements of your brand into 3 groups. 1, brand strategy. 2, brand identity. And 3, brand experience. A lot of content written on branding bleeds into the distribution of your brand. But really, those are your customer acquisition tactics. How, not where, you execute them is what matters when talking about brand. Brand strategy. Your brand strategy, of course, includes the external considerations of your strategy. Buyer personas, positioning, and messaging choreography. It then connects those considerations to your purpose, promise, product, and personality with the goal of generating a specific emotional reaction. The strategic elements direct and infuse your brand with direction and meaning. They are your decision-making criteria and include your buyer personas, positioning, messaging, purpose, promise, product, personality, company product architecture when necessary, and desired customer emotion. We start with buyer personas and the messaging that will resonate so that you are making decisions with a clear idea of who will judge your communication choices and what message they will convey. Next, brand strategy considers the market reality, your positioning. Are you more or less expensive? Is your quality higher or lower? Is your service faster or slower? What type of culture does your company exude? It all starts with who you serve and where in the spectrum of options your offering lies. Your brand helps you claim a specific and consistent place in your buyers' minds. Your value and price have no significance to your buyers unless they know what to compare you to. Branding helps customers organize their options. Walmart provides lower quality, lower pricing, and a lower level of customer service than Nordstrom. Does this make the company less effective or less successful in the market? Of course not. Walmart knows the people it seeks to serve, and those in the company make communication decisions in alignment with the best way to communicate accurately, as does Nordstrom. Each has chosen branding appropriate to its desired place in the market and seeks to execute on its brand promises consistently. Customers use the same indicators to determine market positioning in their B2B roles, just as they do as consumers. From a marketing perspective, this is encapsulated in your differentiation strategy. One of my clients in the financial industry appropriately framed the company's predicament as drowning in the sea of sameness that defined that industry. I've adopted that sea of sameness phrase because it captures the heart of the problem. Crafting a powerful differentiation message does not mean, how do I communicate that we're better, faster, or cheaper? Differentiation means to be different. Different! Purple instead of blue, small instead of big, funny instead of serious. But truly desiring escape from the sea of sameness requires courage. You can't look at your competitors as context. You must dive into this space where you are incomparable. It's wise to consider 3 areas to help you stand out from the competition. 1, what makes your offering different. 2, how you do business. And 3, why you care. Being the est. You can differentiate by having a truly superior product. Maybe you're the first to market, you disrupted a market, or your est, e.g. fastest, cheapest, best, is so superior that it's nearly impossible for your prospects to choose your competitor once they've heard of you. For now. Eventually, a copycat or a different type of disruptor is going to come along and make your innovation obsolete. This is a never-ending game of cat and mouse, where your customer loyalty lasts only as long as your best feature remains unique. It's important to remember that this does not refer to quality. This relates only to your offering's truly unique and superior features, ones that no one else can claim. The danger is that many companies are so in love with their superiority that they forget what's in it for me. It doesn't matter whether you're better. It matters only whether your prospective customers think so and believe that being better matters to their desired outcome. Magnifying your you-ness. This is where your humanity and your story enter the picture. There is only one you. There is no other organization on the planet exactly like yours. No one else brings the exact combination of insight, point of view, people, culture, experience, opinion, passion, strength, strategy, and every other characteristic that defines your organization. By default, you are already different. So now you need to own it. Clarify your specialness and be intentional about going bigger with your strengths. Simply put, this is how you do what you do. For example, your operational or process excellence might result in efficiency, unique customization, delivery, delight, speed, or any number of things. Equally, the personality of your business can affect customer experience, ease of doing business with you, referrals, and reviews because the emotion of doing business with you is so positive. Or you may specialize in a specific market, problem, or product that not only helps speed up sales cycles and delivery because of your mastery, but can help you justify a higher price because research shows buyers will pay a premium for specialization. Why? Because it removes fear and increases confidence. No one else runs business in the exact manner you do because no one else has your daily truth. The reality of how you are different lies in your stories. It's found in the vivid description of how you go about your business and how this affects your customers. But just know that this aspect of differentiation is a difficult one to clarify because everywhere you go, there you are. It's difficult to know how you're different because you are saturated in your own environment, assumptions, and day-to-day reality. This is where an outside consultant can be wildly beneficial. Communicating your why. You may have seen the 2010 TED Talk, How Great Leaders Inspire Action by Simon Sinek. If not, stop and go watch it now. I'll wait. In the past decade, we've heard this time and again. So why is our why so underutilized? Because it's truly hard work, and it's work that takes time and has no finish line. Sure, you might eventually craft the right words for your mission and vision statement, but truthfully, the exact phrasing might need to be updated from time to time. More important, your why is not about perfect copy, but instead about doing business with real heart and putting people first in action, not just in word. This work takes a heavy dose of self-awareness and as well as dedication to infusing your entire organization with meaning. You must cast a vision of success that goes beyond the total of your invoices and reputation. Because I believe so passionately in the importance of this, I'm going to do you a favor. I won't sugarcoat this. Once you've claimed your why, the implementation goes far beyond updating some words and talking about it at a sales meeting. Your message will change, of course, but if the commitment is there, a cascade of decisions and investments lie before you. Your bonus structures might need to change. Your hiring and firing criteria will definitely need to change, and you'll need to be intentional about what it looks like to live out your why and your core values. Your entire approach to business should eventually be seen through the lens of your purpose and beliefs. But this is the work of legacy and impact and of building a business that changes people's lives. Even if you're in IT, manufacturing, industrial distribution, finance, or any of the other complicated behind-the-scenes companies that make the world go around. I do a lot of speaking and writing on using your work to bless the world, and I don't have enough space in this book to tackle what it takes to find and communicate your why here. But there are many resources, including my company's very popular list of the best examples of mission and vision statements, which has a DIY workbook to get you started. You can find it at themarketingblender.com/vision-mission-statements. Your why statement is critical because it allows your prospects and customers to find common ground with you. When you have clearly identified your why, it will shine through your communication and even your stories. The alignment your prospects register might be related to values they share with you, similar shared histories, or possibly a shared vision of the future. Whatever the parallel, your purpose helps you communicate that you are trustworthy because you are similar. If you're somewhere in the middle of your organization, don't lose heart and don't ignore this work. Small divisions and teams can have why statements and be mission-oriented inside of larger organizations. But for a why to have marketable impact on the success of a business, this work must come from the top down. It cannot be delegated. Be brave enough to dive into the personal work needed for this. Get a consultant to help you see your blind spots and hear the themes that you take for granted. Do the work. You'll find your joy and the market will respond. Your archetype and your customer's emotion. All this work culminates in people's emotional response to your organization. Why so much attention to emotion, you might be asking? Remember, decision-making happens in the limbic system of the brain, which controls emotion. It controls neither logic nor communication. Let me repeat this. Decision-making happens at emotional ground zero. We went through how to build your incomparable advantage in Chapter 5 because we often overcomplicate our words and sink into logic and argument to feel comfortable. I have found that we need to get the words organized and out of the way in order to help us do the critical work of branding, because logical words don't help in branding. Your brand sets the emotional stage for your success. This is once again a great place to employ a framework for understanding your incomparable advantage in emotion and relationship. As people, we understand ourselves within the social roles we play in our lives, and we have immediate context around what different roles represent. So it's helpful to look at your company as a character with a distinct, recognizable personality. You'll be amazed at how effective this is. Who are you to your customers when delivering on your strengths? Your role is called your archetype. Archetypes are the most common characters found in stories that represent our relationships with one another. Carl Jung popularized their use in psychology for understanding personalities. In literature and screenwriting, they help readers quickly empathize with characters because their personalities are familiar and believable stereotypes. They are highly recognizable and tap into our universal human emotions, experiences, and ways of relating to others. As such, archetypes lend both a symbolic and a familiar magnetism to brands. The print version of the book shows the standard depiction and organization of the classic 12 archetypes in a circle divided into 12 pie pieces and 4 quadrants. Beginning with the top left quadrant, you see the caregiver, the ruler, and the artist organized together because these characters provide structure. In the top right, the innocent, the sage, and the explorer are grouped as having impact in the spiritual journey. As you continue around the circle, the outlaw, the magician, and the hero strive to leave a mark. And finally, the lover, the jester, and the everyman archetypes focus on connecting with others. Looking at how customers experience your organization as if it's a character in a movie can be poignant and massively effective in helping you distill down the essence of who you are in the marketplace. To employ an archetypical structure for your brand, identify which role your company plays in its customer interactions. Taking a look at the graphic, you'll see the circle is divided into 12 roles and subdivided into 4 quadrants. Each quadrant and the 3 roles within it is organized around the universal transformation that you achieve for your customers and even the world at the center of the circle. Additionally, on the outside of the circle, you'll see phrases that relate to what you enjoy and aspire to culturally. It's critical to start with the quadrant and not the name of the role, because all people will have preconceived notions about who they believe themselves to be individually, as well as strong negative associations with these different roles. These gut reactions are what make archetypes so profoundly effective, but they can sabotage the work of identifying the real archetype that your organization embodies culturally. Additionally, there are no good or bad archetypes. Just like human beings, each one brings strengths and conversely an Achilles heel. Your best customers already subconsciously know which archetype you are. You cannot pick an archetype simply because that's what you want to be. Your brand already exists, and it's your job to align with your current reality and maximize the best aspects of that role. If you look at the previous strategic components, which quadrant best aligns with the transformation you create for customers shown on the inside of the circle? Does it also align with the culture and mission of your organization, i.e. the outside descriptions? Once you've narrowed down the quadrant, move to the 2 middle layers. 1, the output, and 2, the archetypes themselves. These output words describe what you deliver to your customers. So if the inner part of the circle is the transformation you provide, then the output is how you enable that transformation. What is the final culmination of your value? Quadrant 1, the top left corner, commonly focuses on the benefit to the individuals in an organization. 2 is related to external significance and influence in the world. 3 impacts the relationships among stakeholders. And 4 often helps your clients maximize how they serve or engage their customers. To hone in on your core archetype, gather more detailed information on each one at themarketingblender.com/brand-archetypes. You can also see great examples of corporate archetypes in today's business world. Don't be surprised or alarmed if you believe you fit 2 archetypes in 2 different quadrants. If it turns out they are both applicable, you'll have to make a decision about which one is primary. This is critical. So many B2B companies don't want to draw a line in the sand because they want to throw everything they've got at everyone they could possibly serve. But this is simply poor decision-making and a lack of strategic discipline. Most leaders know that being decisive is critical for success. There are numerous ways to solve problems, but at the end of the day, you must pick one. As leaders, we're all comfortable with this in hiring, operational improvements, and financial decisions. But in marketing, many of us are not willing to draw that line in the sand, and it waters down our potency in the market. Let me give you an example of making a decision. In my marketing agency, we transform customers' marketing and sales efforts by implementing and optimizing marketing strategies, marketing plans, branding, and digital marketing. Through this process, their business development goes from haphazard to highly structured. More specifically, I'm known for my energy and innovation, which of course influences the type of team members my firm attracts. They in turn deliver highly alluring creations. Thus, our brand is based on the artist archetype. However, we are also very much the sage archetype. We are passionate about being guides and educating our clients and the market at large. On a one-to-one level, we play a mentor or counselor role, helping people realize their potential in themselves rather than just doing the work for them. The sage archetype influences our processes and ways of working, but we decided to lead with the artist in our symbolic representation of what we do, because while we allow ourselves to make individual impact, the final output we create is organizational growth and competitive advantage for our clients. If the founder still runs your company, it is extremely likely that the organizational archetype will embody the founder's primary archetype. This is not bad. It's just oftentimes true. It's better to name and strengthen your organizational personality rather than constantly argue the point, staying mired in fruitless frustration. If you truly get stuck in identifying which lead archetype you should choose, go back to your buyer personas and ask yourself which one resonates the most with them and which role you end up playing with your best customers. Brand identity. Once you outline the brand strategy, it's time to bring in the creative elements that will foster that immediate recognition, allure, and consistency you desire. Your brand identity includes the visual components, style, voice, and guidelines that contribute to the consistency critical to your brand equity, which results in economic benefit for your company. While there is a wide range of elements that compose your brand identity based on how large your organization is, the core elements include your name, logo, colors, visuals and symbols, imagery, fonts, style, brand voice, tagline, if applicable, and brand guidelines on how the elements are to be used together. These elements then need to be applied consistently to your communication tools with special care given to your website, sales collateral, and presentation materials and signage. You must make communication decisions that convey your personality, appeal to your buyer personas, and stir the emotion that helps your prospects better understand and trust you. The creative aspect of your brand is more critical than it's ever been. Research shows that the brain appreciates beauty. Beauty holds our attention and invokes curiosity and indulgence. We slow down for beauty. In an age of too little time and too little attention, that's currency you can't afford to ignore. Subconsciously, we equate beauty with value, desirability, art, power, and stature. According to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, only once basic survival needs are met can we afford to make more spiritual and preferential decisions. Beauty speaks to all, but it becomes apparent only when we allow ourselves to perceive it. When your website and other touchpoints are beautiful, you're giving customers and prospects a more meaningful and enjoyable experience. You are taking them up the value chain. And when people like what they see, they stay longer. Engage the senses intentionally in all your touch points. While the site is the primary conveyance of the brand, it's not the only one, which is why the brand strategy work is so critical. When you choose your brand elements, your brand strategy becomes your decision-making criteria, not your personal preferences. Names, words, and sounds have connotations. Are you thinking through what those might be for your buyer personas? Colors have strong emotional correlations. Are you choosing colors that align with the emotional response you want to evoke? The same holds true for shapes. The associations, however, differ from culture to culture. You must know your buyer personas to be able to navigate these decisions. Brand experience. The third group involves how your brand is distributed through your employees, operations, and customer service. I refer to this as the brand experience. Oftentimes, you'll hear about customer experience, especially as it relates to customer service, experiential marketing, which often relates to live events or activations, and even user experience, commonly referred to as UX and related to the customers of your product interface, digital marketing, or other functional touchpoints. This is truly where the rubber meets the road, because your strategy, brand promise, purpose, values, and brand identity all culminate in real human interactions. In short, do your employees actually live the commitments and strategic decisions that you've made? And more important, that your customers expect from your brand? Perceptions are verbs. Jean-Marie Drew. It does not matter how beautiful, innovative, or clever your branding is if your marketing experience creates frustration, also known as friction. Or worse, if it sucks to do business with you, no design, copy, or mission statement in the world can save you. Your brand, at the end of the day, is your truth, because perception is reality. In the short term, good branding stacks the deck in your favor, while poor branding diminishes your perceived value. Great branding maximizes the effectiveness of all your promotional efforts to garner greater returns. Vigilant, honest, and meaningful brands, in other words, excellent branding, gives you a competitive advantage and increases the value of your business. Maybe we should call branding your customer strategy. In the long term, it's the only marketing tool related to profit. An established and successful brand can help you develop a more profitable pricing strategy and increase your company's valuation. But it takes purposeful, consistent, and deliberate commitment to building a customer experience that is so good it ends up being symbolized within the colors, shapes, and phrases you've chosen for your logo and name. In a world where the speed of change is accelerating exponentially, it's no wonder that people respond to consistency in brands that can be counted on. Employment branding. I would be remiss if I didn't address one final but critical point about the application and importance of your brand. It's not only your prospects who are taking cues from your brand communication to make decisions about you. It's also your future employees. World-class organizations attract world-class talent, not only the best and the brightest, but the personalities and the values that will be a cultural fit. When you effectively communicate the truth of your organization, your prospective employees will recognize your organization as a place where they will, or won't, thrive and grow. We have seen a growing gap in skills alignment, as well as phases in which there have been more jobs than workers. The competition for great people is more intense than ever. Your brand is the edge you need in order to attract the people who will protect your culture and take your company to the next level. If your brand isn't everything I've described in this chapter, I do have to ask you, why not? Believe me, you can't afford to let this slide. The rearview mirror. Decision-making is not logical, but emotional. The brain is a highly efficient filter and prioritizes only the stimuli that already have meaning to us. Because of the vast amount of information the brain filters and the large number of daily decisions it makes, the brain employs heuristics, or mental shortcuts, to reduce the cognitive load of complex decisions. These heuristics align with the strategic recommendations of this book. Knowing the science behind decision-making further helps us to be customer-centric and to maximize our effectiveness. Branding makes you recognizable in the market, which can increase your organization's bottom line, but it is based on your prospects' actual perceptions versus how you want to be perceived. Branding can be broken down into 3 segments. 1, brand strategy. 2, brand identity. 3, brand experience. You then apply your decisions from these 3 categories to all your customer acquisition tactics. Add resonance and impact to your brand messaging with a multi-tiered approach to your differentiation strategy, combining what is great about your offering, how you deliver in a unique way, and why you care. Archetypes provide a powerful framework for making clear brand decisions that will draw the right emotional response from your buyer personas. Your branding must culminate in your customer's experience. Branding must also be applied to attract the right talent.